Hey everyone, welcome back. It is your girl Bri Undeniably, and you're tuned into my new speaker series, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals, where we talk about development, decision making, and dedicating yourself to your purpose. So, today, in true entrepreneurial fashion, there has been a change of plans. So, first of all, before I even start with the change of plans with what I was supposed to get into, I'm going to give a couple shout outs because I think they're super important. I love to support others who are also supporting me, and it's something that I'm learning is definitely like a major key in doing something for yourself, like building a business, building a brand. Collaboration is super important. So first and foremost, I am in this awesome space. This is Gotham Podcast Studio. So if you're watching this on YouTube or even on any of my social profiles, shout out to Gotham Podcast Studios because they are definitely hooking up with the sound, the audio, and the video. Also, shout out to Podmatch. Podmatch is the source that I've been sourcing some of my guests, and we will talk about that in a few minutes because I'm making a little bit of a transition there. But Podmatch has been awesome. They actually also provide some awesome educational sources as well for podcasters and individuals trying to put on an awesome show. So shout out to Podmatch. And third, and definitely most important right now, is shout out to Emcee Kicks, Emcee Apparel. That is the awesome sweatshirt I'm wearing. Emcee Kicks has provided me with such awesome merch. I'm going to be rocking a lot of it in my episodes. So again, if you're listening to this through a podcast streaming source, that's cool. If you're watching it through YouTube or some video streaming source, that's even better because you're getting the audio and the video. You'll see the awesome merchandise that I'm wearing and the whole podcast recording atmosphere. So Emcee Kicks, you can find them, go support them, check out some of their customizable merch. That's at EMCEEKICKS. Shout out one more time to Emcee Kicks because they are definitely doing it right in the customizable world, sneakers, merch. They've got everything, so go check them out. All right, so question of the hour is, where is the other dope individual? Again, if you are watching this, you'll see that I'm just myself right now. There's no one else in studio with me. There's no one streaming on the screen behind me. That's because, again, there's change of plans, and that happens more often than not, and you just have to be able to roll with it. So I'm here in studio. I wasn't going to let my studio session go to waste. That would just be silly. So you take what you have and you work with what you've got. So there was a change in scheduling, a last minute scheduling thing for the guest that I was going to have here. So your dope individual today is me. And I'm okay with that because I think that I have some loose ends to tie up. Y'all know that I can come and speak for 45 minutes, no problem. I did that my whole first season, but I think that this is a great opportunity for me to actually really jump in to this new speaker series that I'm putting together, why I'm putting it together, kind of how the formation of it is taking place, and really sort of what my trajectory is. Things are always molding, flexing, reiterating. So, but I will tell you sort of where I'm at now. So first, let's talk about, the title right here, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals. So how did that come about? First, I did shout out Podmatch, and Podmatch has been so awesome because it was really a starting place for me. And I know there's actually a lot of podcasting communities that connect podcasts with guests. And it's cool because you can kind of do both. So if you're trying to build a brand, you can also do what's called like a podcast tour. So if I wanted to really pump my Bri Undeniably brand or, whatever business I might be building in the moment, I can kind of find other podcasts that I think would have the right audience for me to sort of market myself to. And then in the same way, you kind of put a description of what your podcast is, and those same guests will come to you saying, hey, I think I'd be a good match to come and talk about X, Y, and Z on your podcast. So Podmatch has been amazing because it was really the start of me bringing guests onto the show. So as you all know, I did my first I call it my first season, even though it's kind of just been a nice little flow of everything going into each other. My first 9 or 10 episodes were just me speaking in long form on different mental health topics in psychology, really sort of that place of passion for me. And I'm going to bring back passion in a second because it's super important to how I've transformed to where I'm at. And what I've talked about so much on the podcast is this transparency piece and how, I plan on growing throughout this. And I want my growth to be in the open. I think there's something incredibly important about it. And for a while, I would even say in those first 10 episodes, though I knew how important the transparency was, I actually couldn't really define the importance of it. And I think what's really cool about everything leading up to this super impromptu episode is I will get to actually bring you into that right now, because for me, it feels like things are finally coming together and everything is merging into a really succinct place and I guess niche for me to dive full force into. So I'm happy that I've been able to be transparent about that, and we are going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But so that transparency has been key. And while I was able to sort of bring that piece of passion of, my passion to bring mental health and resources kind of to the forefront, and my passion to help us break down the psychological concepts, and really, my tagline, which I will forever be grateful for and will always fit into everything I'm doing, buy into the possibility of you. That has really been the driving force. And mental health, again, the psychology aspects of it, what I've studied and put so much of my true education into in the psychology space, and bringing that to you has been super important for me. But I've been trying to figure out how to narrow the focus, because I'm not a psychology expert in everything, and that, I would have a lifelong more of learning to do to be able to say that I ever would be. And I've really found that a lot of my educating with psychology to others has been in development, and that is very much in both the personal and professional development space. That's where a lot of the questions come from that people ask me. That seems to be a lot of what I produce. And again, that comes back to this transparency, because what I realized, again, in the past several months of really trying to hone in on this niche of mine, is that I am my ideal client. And that is so important. It's something I want to say, it's called like the client avatar. So when you're building a business, you want to really be able to name in so many ways what your ideal client, not what they look like, that really doesn't make any sense, but who your ideal client is. And again, this brings back the full circle of the transparency, that I didn't really know why being transparent with you was so important, but I'm now realizing it's because I am my client avatar. I am trying to market personal and professional development using psychological tools to people in the same situation as me. And that is people who are trying to build something for themselves. And again, that goes back to the development piece, personal and professional development. So I'm the client avatar. That really makes sense for the transparency of what I've brought to you so far. So now we're bringing it back into bringing speakers on. So I mentioned Podmatch, and what Podmatch really did for me, and I'm so thankful for them, and also the CEO and founder of Podmatch. He is super easy to talk to. Like, we will email back and forth if I have questions. He'll put me on Instagram. We just got to tag him, and so super cool. Like, just even though it's a large platform, they're just the whole community is really cool to be a part of, because it's a lot of people trying to build something in the podcast space specifically. So not necessarily in the entrepreneurial space, but in the podcast space, which is similar. And what Podmatch did was it allowed me to start bringing on people to the podcast and kind of pick their brain a little bit. In general, my profile on Podmatch says it's a podcast in, talking about mental health and psychology and development. So that is super broad, and that's going to bring a super broad base of potential guests to come on the podcast. And that's been really cool, and that has kind of been what you've been listening to in the interim while I kick off the speaker series, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals. So I'm going to talk about what a dope individual is in my eyes as well. But I mean, I think everyone I talk to is a dope individual, but there's something that I'm actually driving it towards to be very specific. But all of the people that I've brought on to the podcast so far have been super amazing, super inspiring individuals. And it has led me again to keep narrowing in on this niche of really deciding, okay, I have all of these speakers who have brought a whole bunch of different topics, and like who are the ones that I'm finding I have the most rich conversation with and can really dive full force into the conversation with. And I have found that those are the ones who are also, again, my client avatar, the ones who are doing the same thing or who have done the same thing that I am in the process of doing right now. And that's building a business, building a brand, building something that drives their passion. And again, we're bringing back in passion. And I'm going to say again why we bring in passion, because passion actually isn't the central part. Passion is a piece of the equation that I'll get to. So I found that having these conversations with all of these really cool people has made me want to continue to have the conversations with people who are in the entrepreneurial space, because that's where I find that I can have the super rich discussions and conversations. So first of all, I want to say shout out to everyone who has come on my podcast and is not necessarily in the entrepreneurial space, but has brought an incredible amount of value to the podcast, because one, you have helped me kick off my my transition into doing podcast conversations. And I guess I try not to make it interview style. I try to keep it conversational. But to all of the individuals which you've heard up until this point that I've spoken to, who I might not have any information to really contribute to the conversation, but I can have an active ear and listening and understanding the value that they bring. Thank you all so much, because you have really been a driving force for me, and one, understanding how I want to guide the podcast, and two, understanding, how I'm going to do this thing, how I am going to continue to really continue my trajectory forward in the podcast. So shout out to everyone there and everyone I've met on Podmatch. The cool part is, and I plan on continuing working on Podmatch, but again, as I said, I've narrowed my focus, so I'm changing my descriptions a little bit. You'll see that my podcast background is different. It's not just Bri Undeniably anymore, because this is going far beyond me. It's really, I plan on making the transition to Deep Conversations with that's not right. To Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals, because it's growing outside of me. So right now it's Bri Undeniably presents Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals. I still plan on going as Bri Undeniably. I love kind of the persona I've created out of that name, and I continue to use that as my personal brand, but it's Bri Undeniably bringing you something that's so much more. So here we are, deep conversations with dope individuals. What is a dope individual? So I told you that I am my client avatar. I'm finding it really fun and interesting and exciting to interview and conversate with others who have that same entrepreneurial bug or who have built incredible brands and businesses in the entrepreneurial space. And this is still getting workshopped. However, now is the time for me to talk about it. I'm considering a dope individual someone who is driving on purpose daily. Or, I'm sorry. See, this is what happens when you're impromptu as well. Driving on purpose every day, because it's not a DOPD individual, it's a DOPE, dope individual. So driving on purpose every day. And so now I brought purpose into it. And purpose is really what I'm getting to, because I'm finding that purpose is really the psychology piece, that piece of me, and especially in the mental health space that you know that I love to talk about, and that is my expertise. The purpose piece of the entrepreneurial game is fully and 100% what I'm finding is the niche in what I'm doing. And I mean, this actually goes to a small Instagram post that I posted the other day when I recorded a conversation with a good friend of mine. And I called him a fellow purposepreneur. And I'm actually in the process of now trademarking that term, because I got a ton of feedback on it, and I actually realized this is exactly what I'm trying to bring to people. People who are building something based on their purpose. And so the value add that I'm really going to bring to today's conversation is, what is purpose? And it's taken me a bit of time to try to really tease out the idea of what purpose truly is to its core. But I've found that I can simplify it in an equation. And because I can talk for days and weeks and months and years, I will define that equation. But I will simplify it to this. Purpose is passion plus people. So I've brought passion in several times in this discussion already. And I've brought people in several times, but I'm going to break it down fully. So purpose is passion plus people. Passion is something that really brings you that sense of joy. And the way you can sort of test out a passion, like, am I really passionate about this? Is when you're doing it, are you actually presently in it? So for me, a way in passion is cool because you don't have, I believe, and this is something that I can look into, and I don't think there will ever be a true answer, but I'm going to stick to, you can have several passions. Passion can be found in a lot of things, and we don't need to feel like we can only have one true passion, because I believe that passion can be broad in a lot of ways. But passion is when time no longer exists when you're doing the thing that you're doing. A few examples of this, for me, a passion that I have, which isn't the passion that I'm driving on with this podcast, but a passion that I have that I've had since I was little, is dancing. When it is me and music and a dance floor or a space for me to move my body, I can dance without the concept of time ever entering into that space with me. If you are a sports player, and dancing obviously, like the movement of your body, it's the same sense of sports. If you are on that court or that field or wherever your sport might be played, and you are fully immersed in it, and you are able to lose the concept of time and just be fully presently there, that's a passion. Passion can be defined in a lot of ways. A lot of people, cooking is a passion, and you just get lost in the mixing and, developing of flavors. And, I don't have much more to describe cooking because that's a real work in progress for me. Time is definitely a major factor when I'm cooking, but that's a different story. But there's a lot of ways that we can understand different passions in our lives, and passions can be academic in nature as well. And that's why for me, again, learning and delivering concepts of psychology and mental health, counseling, as I am a school counselor, as so many of you know, and I've said, that is something that I am passionate about. I can be there with a client and working with them through different pieces of what they might be going through. And the only reason I have a concept of time is because time is incredibly important in the counseling space, because you want to make sure there's enough room for winding down the session. So that is the only reason that in a counseling session, time would be important. But otherwise, I would be able to talk to someone about what they're going through and just be immersed in the conversation and using all of my tools to help them through what they're going through without time, if time didn't have to exist in those situations. So things that are academic in nature can also be passions of yours. So how does that differ from purpose? And I said purpose is passion plus people. So the people concept, I really want to expand to something outside of yourself. So that could also be passion plus the world, or passion plus nature, or it's basically how you take your passion and you deliver it at scale to others, or to nature, or to, insert X outside of you into that space. But people, generally, it seems that in most cases, it is passion plus people in some capacity. Again, though, if it's animals, and if it's like you realize that you love working with animals, and you want to bring your love of working with animals to then, becoming a animal trainer of some sort, or a wildlife, expert of some sort, then it might be, passion plus animals, or passion plus nature. But I think you understand what I'm saying. So it's taking your passion and then coupling it with how you can bring that passion to others. And that, to me, is the most basic way to describe purpose. Purpose is when you are able to derive a sense of meaning from the thing that you're doing. So that is where really that plus people, or plus nature, or plus animals comes into play, because meaning comes from your ability to deliver in that same passionate way to others. Okay, so meaning really brings that, it really evokes that emotional piece that makes it worthwhile. So, dope individuals, bringing it full circle, is an individual who is driving on their purpose every day. I might change the driving to, I have to figure out how to really make the acronym work. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's the direction that I'm going. And it all ties into this purposepenuer that I didn't think was actually going to become something so powerful for me. But I am now considering myself a purposepreneur because I feel as though I am finally able to take what I feel passionate about and bring it to others in a way that I feel like is making a true impactful difference. And I'm at the very beginning stages of this. So I'm definitely right now developing and fleshing out so many more pieces outside of this podcast to continue to deliver meaningful content and meaningful deliverables, whatever they might be, again, to my client avatar, who is me. Someone who is looking to build their lives, to build their livelihood out of their purpose. Someone who is looking to dive full force into becoming an entrepreneur to build something for themselves based on what their purpose is. So it's really cool to actually be talking about this and be bringing it to you full force. Everything happens for a reason. And the fact that I did have this last minute change in studio and I wasn't able to chat with my dope individual guest who was supposed to be here today has given me this opportunity to actually bring this to you. So there are a lot of things to come in this. There's a lot that's going to happen from here for me and for you, and for everyone else that I bring on. But if you're listening to this now, and my thought is as I record this, and again, I do pre-record, and then I produce. It doesn't actually take a couple of weeks, but again, because I've had so many cool individuals that I've been interviewing through Podmatch, and their interviews deserve to be heard through my platform, because they're rich in discussion and have really, again, helped me grow to this point in time. I'm kind of on, let's say, podcast back order, which means that I'm recording a bunch in a short amount of time, but then I'm producing the podcast weekly. So if you're hearing this, you've probably heard all of my interviews that might not necessarily be around entrepreneurship, but have been with some really incredible individuals. So I'm considering it, and maybe, I'll make a note somewhere if this doesn't go as planned, because all things don't go as planned. But I'm really considering this, I believe will be the official start of my speaker series, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals, because this is a great way to kind of introduce the rest of all of the speakers that I will be speaking with moving forward, who are going to be mainly entrepreneurial, in spirit or in life or in some way, shape, or form. What's cool is that an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily need to be full force into their business right now. And I actually think that's really important to bring that diversity to the show, because I want to bring everyone from people who have been doing this their whole lives or their whole careers to those who are in the beginning stages and still sort of straddling positions and straddling, that source of income while they try to build the brand that is really driving their purpose. So I'm going to try to bring a mix on. At this point, let me tell you, stay tuned. I cannot even begin to tell you how incredible the entrepreneurs have been that I've spoke to, and what amazing, absolute, unparalleled value they are bringing here. So even if, you maybe didn't listen to all of my first season, because hearing me speak about psychology and mental health might not be, exactly what you want to listen to all the time. And that's okay, because, again, we figure out who our audience is, and who we are speaking to. And that was really just me trying to figure out how to do this thing. And it was really fun for me. And I know I brought value to the people who did listen. But if you weren't necessarily a true listener at that stage in the game, I so encourage you to get ready to listen to this series, because when I tell you it is packed with information that I believe everyone should listen to, because there's something about this that can really spark something in anyone listening. And that is the idea and really the fact that if there is something that you want to do that is outside of what you're currently doing, and based on the research I have done personally, and the conversations I have had personally, that is a lot of individuals, and almost all of the entrepreneurs I've spoke to thus far, that was once them. You start to gather the information that you need to understand that you can, in fact, do this too. You can, in fact, build a business that generates income and purpose. A business that actually drives not only your bills that you have to pay, but the meaning that you want out of life. It's damn hard. You'll also gather that. That's not something that anyone is trying to be vague about here. And you need to get in the trenches. And it's scary. And that seems to be one of the major pieces that I'm gathering, that I've found in myself and that I've noticed in others, is that fear, especially that initial fear that if you've never done it before, is, I would say at this point in my research and understanding, might be the number one factor holding you back. Because it's scary to think about where your next paycheck might come from. And that's all stuff that we can talk about too, because there's definitely this interim phase where you got to hustle hard and, go all in, maybe to both your source of income and to your purposepreneurship ventures, because it's not yet generating revenue. And that's okay too, but that's the hard part and the scary part, and that's the beginning part. And that's where everyone, or most people, I don't like to ever really put everyone in a category, but that's where most people are getting tripped up. The ones who don't trip over that are the ones who are bringing value to themselves and others in a way that many of us can't necessarily do in our day job. I encourage everyone at this point to really take a look at the life you're living right now. And based on the definition that I gave of purpose, try to decide or try to see if and where you are living out purpose in your life. And I have to say this, and this is, I'm going to say this in I don't even know how to say it. I'm just going to say it. For all of my parents out there, you basically have built-in purpose. And that is absolutely incredible, because you know what purpose feels like through parenting. What I challenge you to do, because I would never, ever, ever, ever try to say that that's not purpose. Parenting is a purpose that, since I'm not a parent, I can't speak to, but my goodness, do I know that that might be the number one purpose of all time is to parent and raise a child. But I challenge you to look through the eyes of your child, because your child doesn't see that mom or dad is living purposefully through being their parent. You are their parent as you're supposed to be, and you're going to be their superhero regardless. But what might they see? Because again, I cannot take away that parenting is not purpose. But what I want is for us to find that individual purpose, I guess, individual of family. And I guess I will have to flesh that out because, again, I'm not a parent. I think I'm going to immediately poll some parents after this, because I also know from the research that I've done and from counseling that I do with parents, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think that is so important, because if you are not also fulfilling a purpose through your career outside of that parenthood, again, because I think I even need to make a new word, because parenting is beyond purpose. Parenting purpose is different from entrepreneurial purpose. And I think I need to make that super clear. So that, I challenge everyone to look into their lives and see where they're driving purpose outside of that truly incredible parenting purpose. So outside of that is purpose being generated in a place in your life that you feel you are living meaningfully daily. That's what I challenge everyone to look for. And if you're finding that it's really difficult to find where that purpose is coming from, it might not be coming from anywhere at all. And that's why I'm here. That is truly, genuinely, to my core, what I feel like is my purpose right now, is trying to use what I know to bring people to understand that not only can they have, but that they deserve to have that purpose in their lives through the work that they're doing. So, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals. I am so excited that this is kicking off. You'll find that I have 3 sort of cores that I'm bringing in to all of my conversations. That is development, decision-making, and dedicating yourself to purpose. And those I will both introduce the podcast with. We kind of have a rapid fire at the end of the podcast that I'm a human, and I as I go, you'll hear that in the first couple episodes, maybe I forgot, and we're getting there. But those are the 3 cores right now: development, decision-making, and dedicating yourself to your purpose. And I found that those 3 things have been central to me really going full force into this, how I'm developing both personally and professionally, the decisions I've made along the way, both by choice and guiding voice. So both actively as well as kind of that intuitively or that spiritual pull. And then dedicating myself to purpose, both, in the moment and on a daily basis. So those are the 3 things that I'm really trying to bring to people. Those are the 3 key points that in at least these first several conversations, I'm going to really try to drive home. And those are the 3 factors that I want people to start focusing on in their purposepreneurship journey. Again, the trademark is in the works, but my gosh, is that a tongue twister? Purposepenuership. So that is where we're at. Again, I am so happy that I had this opportunity. Totally impromptu. I shot my laptop, kind of pushed it to the side, and jumped right into this. So welcome to my new Purposepreneur journey. I'm so happy to have you along the ride with me. I'm so excited to introduce the official start of my new speaker series, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals. And I'm sure I will be checking in with you along the way. Until next time, everyone, let this be the moment. We'll talk soon.